In the hole.
Fire in the hole. Good morning from the East Coast of the United States. Hope everyone's doing well this morning. Um, so yesterday's chat, um, I sort of got into us talking a little bit about waves. Brett, do you remember that?
Vaguely.
Vaguely, yes. And the reason why that was coming up for me is because I've been thinking about this like waves of change in my life and how it just will like crash all over you when you're like least expecting it and just sort of like wash away almost like a baptism what you think you are or the world looks like. And after a lot of chats with Chad the last few days and seeing Scott for the first time and like making this transition of visiting back home, there's just been a lot of um, almost like unexpected but beautiful waves that seem to be coming into my life. And so, whenever I'm overwhelmed with this type of emotion, um, I normally like to write a poem. And I was able to write a poem yesterday, and the theme is essentially about this idea of coming back home and seeing my family for what feels like the first time. Because a little background is I felt like for a long time I had a really um, unfortunate disconnection with my the world, with myself, and it just felt like I was grasping at straws for a long time. And I think a lot of it was me trying to control getting back into connection. And again, that grasping, that needing, that desperation that just kept coming up. And in that like motion of grabbing, I felt like I was digging a deeper hole for myself. I was getting more and more disconnected. And so once I sort of got into this space and I started feeling this connection that I had been searching for, that I didn't even need to grasp for, I um, I got really inspired to go back home and to try to connect with my family, but in a different way, in not this grasping, needing to understand type of way, but in accepting and allowing for whatever's going to come to crash over me, I guess. And then when I went to the beach with my family and we were walking on the water, I don't know, I had this epiphany that I don't need to understand what the ocean is doing. Why do I need to understand so much what I'm doing or what my family is doing in order to appreciate it? So, with that context, I wrote this poem, and it's titled The Tide Between Us. It was evening. I was in unfamiliar but familial territory. My parents looked to me with questioning eyes and mentioned taking a walk on the beach. It had been years since a suggestion that simple didn't feel like a test. So I motioned my body in the form of agreement, and off we went. Though I found I carried old conversations with me, carefully folded like letters I'd read far too many times. But we walked, and we walked for a while without much speaking. The tide, well, it did what tides have always done. It gathered itself, it gave itself away, it gathered again. I noticed my father pausing to watch a sandpiper that was trying to outrun the foam. My mother, she bent down to pick up a shell, slightly chipped by the sea. Neither one seemed bothered that the waves couldn't decide where they belonged. I wondered why I had never asked the ocean to explain itself. I'd never stood at the shoreline, frustrated that two waves couldn't agree. I'd never wished the tide would stop changing long enough for me to trust it. I simply watched. Somewhere between the third silence and the 100th wave, I noticed something. I had come here expecting another misunderstanding. I was listening for familiar disappointments, waiting for old sentences to wear new voices. But while I was busy guarding against yesterday, today had quietly arrived. My father laughed, not at me, or actually at anything really, just laughed. My mother pointed towards an airborne pelican gliding so low its reflection was flew beside it. And we all stood there, three people, looking at the same horizon, no one solving the past, no one explaining the missing years. And the tide slowly took away our footprints before we could even look to examine them. And somehow that felt merciful. I realized then that attention is not the same as agreement. It is rather the courage to let this moment just be this moment, without forcing it to repay for another of the distant past. Because the waves never asked me to believe that they would always be gentle and form the same way each crash, only to watch the next one arrive. Perhaps love works like this, not by demanding that every tide look like the last, but by returning again and again without fear, no longer deciding what we were able to see. So we found we had walked as far as we could and slowly turned for home. I looked back once again and noticed the ocean hadn't changed, but it no longer felt like something I needed to understand, only something I was grateful to witness. And that's my poem.
That was really good. Yeah, that's awesome. It's awesome how expectations can really set you up for disaster. And, when you kind of go into it, it kind of ends up being a completely revolutionary moment. Yeah. Thanks. Appreciate you sharing that.
Thank you. And thank you for helping to form my personality to be strong enough to realize it, because I really feel like this space for me has helped me see that I can play in a space that is meaningful. Like, I think for a long time I assumed that in order for it to be meaningful, in order for it to mean something to me, I have to like have it and particularly play with it, right? But it feels like in this space you can literally just be and just play, and things will come to you. It's so interesting that for a long time there was this sense of intentionality. Almost felt like I, I had to be like in control. Like if I'm going to be intentional, it means I'm managing. It means I'm controlling it. If Because if I'm not controlling it or managing it, it means I don't care. And I I'm starting to really not just propositionally believe that, but like I'm feeling the fruits of the non-labor, so to say, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's like I understand there's a history in the TLC, and Chad with the Morning Nameless, and then Chris doing his thing, and then like Scott was like, and I was like, dude, this is awesome. Like it's EJ had this video where he talked about how he was showing the video of the dude dancing Goofy at a concert, and then another person came down, so and he starts dancing. The next thing you know, you got a bunch of people running up dancing Goofy, and it was really a good example of how like the morning show kind of kind of took off because it's like, first one person, then another person, then another person, then another person, then another person. And it's like, we're all out here just, dancing, having fun, playing. And,
Yeah.
it's funny, you said the other day, like, I forget that other people are watching. And it's like, you know, it's like, I'm glad they are, you know, I mean, I'm glad they're able to get things out of this stuff, even if they don't necessarily come into the space on the screen. Although we would love that, you know,
Right.
like seeing CW in there. It's been a while. Tunji's tuning in on you here,
I
so
love
it's,
it.
it's yeah, it's cool.
Yeah, it's weird. Like I feel like I've said this before, but I really feel like I had no expectations coming into this space at all because I had no idea even what was going on, even after the first like few weeks of being very much a part of it. And I think there's something about the fact that I wasn't trying to understand you guys or what was going on that actually allowed me to see you all like when you were speaking. And I don't know, I guess I'm just praying that that's something I can take into the real, quote unquote, real world. I mean, this is, but then seeing Scott, this becomes more of a real world to me than I had ever imagined it to be. And, and soon to be seeing you, it's like, how do you keep I don't know, those expectations or those needs to know like at bay so that I'm not controlling who I think you are before I even meet you, right?
I think it's awesome. I mean, that you're doing it. I remember putting out there like, is there anybody in Florida? Like, dude, you got, like everybody's in the middle of the country at the top on the west. It's like this is brutal. All these meetups they had a southeast estuary, and I'm going southeast. You guys are way up there on the east. This thing that ain't nothing south about it. But I mean, obviously, technically, they consider that the southeast. Like that ain't southeast, man. If I was counting south, I would start at Carolinas before I'd go way up there. So I was getting frustrated, like, man, I'm never gonna meet any of these people. And then Matt hit me up, and I realized Matt was like right across the coast, and I'm like, oh, that's cool. And then there's some other people I've heard that are in Florida, little north in Florida, but I was like, oh, this is good. Then Matt's just decided to do his own um, ingression protocol when everybody else was, and then I realized I had surgery, but who was going to do a tiki party before, so I was like, all right, I'm in. So I drove all the way over there, not knowing what I'm walking into. It was exactly
Right.
like I expected it to be, even with all the people I've never met online, because of Matt and who Matt C is. His friends were very much cut from the same cloth. And so it was like awesome just to be able to have
Right.
conversations with these people. Um, so yeah, it's a bummer, Matt. See, I told him, I'm like, yeah, she'll be here like I think Thursday. I'm like, but I know he's leaving to go. He's traveling with his family. Like he's leaving, I think, the very next day or something. So
Yeah.
he has a lot going on.
The nice thing is that I think it's just like an opening. I think I, I was I was talking to my parents about, when I left seeing Scott and like in my mind I wasn't saying like I don't even know if I said goodbye to him. I think it was like, oh, see you later, see you tomorrow. Which I don't know, it felt so weird to say, but also that was like the only natural thing that I could think of. It was like, oh, this is not like a one time, oh, I checked the box and oh, met Scott. That's all I need to do. Um, so that was refreshing for me to feel like I meant when I said it. I was like, oh yeah, I'm not saying goodbye. Like I don't plan on saying goodbye to you when I see you. I'm just gonna say, all right, see you bright and early tomorrow, buddy.
Uh,
Like,
that's right. That's awesome. Yeah, that's good. I like that. It's funny. That's why I think I don't know. Like I've said it time and time again, and people underestimate this online. I think I don't know. It's just like maybe this is because this is so safe to them that they minimize the significance of it to that degree. I mean, I know that they understand it, obviously, otherwise they wouldn't be here, even if it's
Yeah.
subconsciously. But but yeah, and then seeing people in life, again, everybody has their own thing that is intimidating or is you know projecting and for fearing and expectations and failed relationships, whatever it is, judgment, you know, and then yeah, I think that's what this probably does. And then they do the meetups, and it's like, whoa, this is awesome. Like Stephanie was saying something about that. Um, yeah, it's pretty awesome. I think it's awesome. And it's just like we're going about life and continuing to see each other again and again and again. So it's awesome.
Yeah, and I actually I I like the thing that Chad said about the poem being almost like an exhale. And
Yeah.
I think what that speaks to me, and this is where I am now. Like I feel like I had this like, wonderful meeting of Scott, wonderful meeting of like my parents. Felt like I was exhaling. I felt like I was, oh, my shoulders came down, like, belly got soft, all that kind of stuff. But then there's like that next moment now, like that, what am I then going to be taking in from this? Because this is almost how I feel like I got here in the first place, is when I was breathing in or ingesting these like expectations that created this fear within me. Like something I told them, well, like something I told Scott, I was like, I was afraid to meet you because I don't know, wanted you to like me. And not like, I want you to like, but like I like wanted you to see me and not be, I don't know, disgusted by me or whatever, of like who I actually am. And that was the same thing I was thinking with my parents, which is wild. It was like, because I've changed so much, and because the last time I tried to have like a connection with them, I felt like a totally different, totally lost person. It was almost like, because I had cultivated a personality I liked, I I was more worried about their approval or seeing me or whatnot, because like this is who I think I actually am. And to be not liked in that way, I like hadn't really um like actually encountered yet. Like because I haven't really felt like I've introduced this Megan to people. Because it feels like a big step, like a big, and so I think that's where I'm getting, like I'm seeking the wisdom of that next moment of how do I just be okay if I'm not seen in this way or not accepted for this version of myself, you know? Um, and that's like the next step of the inhale of like, I don't know, I don't know what comes next, because you don't want to hold on to, again, these like needs or this expectation or like something like, oh, it has to go well. Like I want to continue to then look forward to that exhale again. Like I need to be able to come off of that. Um, but that's tough when it feels like high stakes.
Yeah, and I don't want to make it sound like uh, the online thing is better than the real life thing. It's just that when you find people that are your people and they're from everywhere, you have it's like this what like I understand what Teo was saying there. But like Teo, dude, you live in the UK, bro. That's like everybody living in the same state, theoretically, but you have to see the value of being able to connect to us all the way across the pond, and you're not going to be able to see us like that, right? Unless you come to the States or unless we come over there. So I love the real in real life interactions, but it's like we're so spread out. And so when the moment does happen, everybody definitely is going to enjoy those in real life moments. But there is something weird about what you said about not saying goodbye to Scott, because I had heard many times, and I get this, I understand this probably more so. What people were saying is that like they'd come back from a conference and they would be like, there would be like this withdrawal. You know, it's kind of like when you plan a vacation for months and then you go on the vacation and it's 1 week and then you come back and you're like, damn, it's over. You know, just that fast. I didn't get to live in the moment. Um,
Mm-hmm.
or you did live in the moment. It's just it just went so fast, and it's like a detox, and it's like you want to go do it again, you know, or you wish you could go do it again, or wish it was happening quicker. Um, but there's something healthy about that also, you know. Like I remember I was in a relationship um, with a girl, and it was like, you know, when I was younger, and my dad was like, "Dude, you guys are you talk way too much." And I'm like, "What do you mean? Like, we enjoy each other's company, we talk, you know, whatever." He goes, "Yeah, but at some point, too much communication like that, like constantly being in each other's face, you know, like so much is just it, you know." And I didn't really get it what they were saying. So the idea of having that opportunity for them to have space, for me to have space, for us to have, you know, a thing was needed, and it had value. Plus, you know, you kind of gave each other an opportunity to miss each other. You know what I mean? So like
Yeah.
there is a value to the missing the person or missing the in real life thing. And then when it does happen, you know, it's like, you know, it's like something to look forward to, you know? So yeah, but I mean, I think this is so cool though that this helps that separation anxiety, or that you know, oh, you know, I'm kind of bummed out because we're not in real life. I mean, I love real life, man, but I also realize not everybody can fly to Florida.
Yeah, I'm so thankful for the internet so that I have a friend in Tayo.
Yeah,
He's
I hope I
awesome.
can. I hope I
I
can
never had
afford to.
that opportunity to meet him.
If I could
And
get there, man, we are kicking it. It's gonna be awesome.
yeah, we should all, everyone who's listening, let's all get on a plane and go visit him ASAP. The estuary is Tayo's backyard or front porch, wherever he sets up his chair.
I wonder how much it would cost to rent a jet.
Rent a jet. Well,
I mean,
this is
I
the
mean,
beauty of the internet, right? Like, who's listening out here that has a jet? I bet there's someone who's like
oh, do
stumbles
you?
upon this one day. Hey, you.
I love your optimism.
Oh my gosh. Well, what about you, Brett? I so I feel like I gave you a little bit of an update on my life and how I feel like I'm going through a little bit of a transition and it still feels like really exciting, really like growing pains, really like I don't want to go back in time, but want to, a lot of things. How are you feeling about, because I know you're in a bit of a wave of change yourself. Like how's that crash feeling over there?
You'd think I'd get used to this because this stuff happens to me a lot, actually. And I do think that I'm starting to realize. So now I'm not starting to realize it. I'm just getting reminded that he's planned my life in such a way that when I finally get to a point, I can see why I had to go through what I had to go through. So I'd say the first 10 years of my sobriety, I was blessed with an opportunity to be a salesman again, you know, and I was really not wanting to do that, especially having the whole car sales thing in my past. It's like, this is not, that's like, there's just too many slippery slopes of being a disgusting person and chasing money. And but I found what I am good at, right? Like I found talking with people and communicating. That I had a gift there, right?
Yeah.
So it was like, okay, how can I use this in a good way? And it was like, well, this is something people need, not necessarily things they want. These are like appliances, you know. It's like not a big deal, right? But I because I valued my knowledge, I really wanted to learn so I could be informed and give them good information, not lies, not manipulation. So then I had people that literally would come into the store because they hated the store that I was in just because it was noisy and it was manipulative signs and sale and neon signs and everything. But they would come in only because I was there. Like they were originally going to shop the store just to get the best price and then go somewhere else and buy it. And they would come back to me and they go, "You're the only reason why I come back here." That made me feel really good. It made me feel like I was making a difference for them and I was connecting with them. And so I developed clientele. But then fast forward to realizing I was putting all my eggs in a basket in a company and trusting them with my career when they passed me up for this promotion that was supposed to stabilize things. And the housing crisis happened. I realized, man, I'm just giving them too much power. I'm
Mm.
putting too much on them, too many expectations on what they're never going to be able to fulfill. And so I tried school, thought that route, and then I realized school might not actually be it because it's not going to change what I'm trying to not do. So even though I started college, started doing all that stuff, I was on track, and it dawned on me. Well, I had another family thing that really, really stopped it, but it gave me a chance to reflect on the value of it or not the value of it. But then I get to Florida. I come back to Florida and I link up with a guy from Sobriety from some of the rooms, and he had this drilling company. They do these giant water wells. And the first day I'm there, they're like welding these iPads on this massive machine, and they're doing a crane pick off the trailer, off a semi, so that they could put it on one of their trailers. And I'm like, this is awesome. Like, I've never been around this heavy equipment lifting stuff, 100-ton cranes, and like this is just awesome. So then I got into that world, drilling and running, driving semi trucks and getting CDLs and stuff like that, and using all sorts of heavy equipment, operating cranes. So like my world was like exploding on knowledge and things I was learning. So now a job opportunity came down from a guy from church, and this is me cultivating a relationship with him just because he's been in some of our men's Bible studies,
Mm.
and he says he's seen the difference in my life, and I'm like, dude, I haven't, but he sees something, and I'm like, that's great, you know. But he's telling me it's a logistics company and it's shipping, and it's one of the it's he says it's the number one in the I haven't looked up whether it's actually the number one in the nation, but the point is that he operates logistics, and it's like getting using clients and setting up the routes and stuff like that. So it's using sales for clients and developing relationships. It's also you know planning the routes with the semis and the trains and the planes. So like you're coordinating all that, and then bidding. So it's like sales. I understand the backside of shipping, heavy loads, wide loads. We used to have to bring massive drill rigs down 95, I-95, and we'd have to
Yeah.
get special routes done because of the height and because of the weight of the loads. And so like I had this background. I mean, I'm not gonna use it, but I'm gonna be able to talk and understand when I'm communicating with these shippers that are shipping whatever.
Right.
Hazmat, I've done hazmat, all that stuff. So it was like, it's crazy how all that stuff connects. And now I have this opportunity, but I'm trying to manage my expectations. You know what I mean? I'm trying to not get so excited about what God's putting before me,
Yeah.
because there's a lot of money in this. And it's been a long time. I've really learned to live on very little and be content with it. And so now it's like, are you really gonna give me back what I had? You know,
Mm,
because
mhm.
I was making really good money and I got used to it, but I was really a wasteful person. You know, I just didn't plan for the future as much. I just wasn't wired that way. And so now I'm able to kind of do something with a different mindset, a different maturity level, a different goal through finances. You know, the importance now of not it just not being about me. You know, I'm
Mm,
trying to
mhm.
help my parents out financially as well. So anyway, I hope that wasn't too much information. But yeah, it's
No,
really exciting.
I guess it's like I guess what came to mind is like, do you feel as though you like is the worry that you don't feel like you can handle that again? Like I feel like it seems like you're saying you want this thing, you have this desire for uh this type of job and opportunity, like, but you also seem to try not to feel that way. Like, are you?
So part of the story is like, my brick wall event and what got me sober was so
Mm,
disastrous that
mm,
it forces me to have a history, you know? So my background has always been a difficult situation for me to procure jobs, you know?
sure,
And so
sure.
it's like okay, I'm not who I was, but I'm also formulated by the stupidity of that lifestyle that I lived of partying and drinking and I mean the DUIs and I mean it was just an insane lifestyle.
Right.
Um, but in a world where it's so digital, HR companies are way different than they used to be. I mean, and they can literally, I mean, it's a proctology exam, you know. So any big corporation or having a regular job, a real career, was always going to be difficult because of the level of examination that you would be put under. So this is like the owner of the company, which is perfect because he knows me and I know him, and he doesn't care about my past and things that I had to go through in order to wake up. And he's like, it's time for you to have not have a monkey on your back. He goes, this is an opportunity for you to have a career, get certified, have credentials, be an agent. And I'm like, I don't know, it's surreal.
Mm,
So like part of me is I guess I've never trusted that even being a possibility. But now, like, the way that I feel God has kind of matured me over the years, it's like maybe this is the reason. It's like before I was going to get something like this, I needed all that maturing, I needed all that grounding and growing and, learning. And now
yeah.
it's all kind of coming together and I'm just pray hopefully and praying and being optimistic about it. But I'm just being cautious. You know me, man. I'm not trying to be all emotional about something and get too excited because being let down is a real thing for me. Like things not working out has happened so many times. So I think that's more the intimidation and trepidation of that versus the other thing.
Mm, mhm, mhm. I also think it's beautiful that you're basically like giving purpose to your past to an extent. It's almost like when you're saying, I see what I had to go through in order to be, where I am now or have the abilities that I have now. I think that's so, I don't know what the word is, but I feel like that's sometimes missed where like like you just say, oh, the bad stuff in the past sucked or whatever, and then the stuff I'm looking forward to is like good or whatever. And there's something about realizing that there's there's knowledge and wisdom of the past experience that have formulated who the heck you are now. And I think that's just like a beautiful thing to actually realize.
Yeah, but it also like I don't know, part of my recovery and going, being in a recovery program has allowed those steps to happen.
Mm,
It's like, um, in America, we went through a huge self-help movement. The 90s was a there were self-help books everywhere. Um, and it was like, it was really about you fixing yourself. It's kind of like you doing this internal exploration. Um, and at 25 years old, 25-year-olds, guys my age were not doing any of that crap. Like that wasn't, so like I'd be in a lot of these. Nowadays it's different. I would say even 10 or 20 years ago it would have been different. But I don't know, 25 years ago, it was way different. Like there was not a lot of young people wanting to quit drinking. Like that wasn't, at least in my area, you know. So like when I was going to a lot of these meetings and groups and stuff like that, I was like the youngest dude there. I did start seeing it change though, you know. Younger people were coming in, being able to help them,
yeah.
and just like I could see the next generation was either getting off the train faster or realizing the value of, you know, from either their parents or their older brothers and sisters that this is a destructive lifestyle. So whatever the case may be, you know. So now it's different. It's like we went so inward that now we're like
Mm, mm.
these little, and then we only find safety in these silos, and so it's like, you know, and I was like that before I came on here. It's like I don't know if I want to, engage this community because there's such a diverse amount of opinions. But this is different. It's like it's not as chaotic as other online communities are because I've seen other online communities and some of them, especially when there isn't when the world is like the center of their community, anything goes still. Our community seems to be more centered on truth and understanding there's a God, which is fundamentally different. Now, I understand there are some atheists and maybe even agnostics that are in the TLC, but they're definitely seeking for the truth.
Mm.
So it's a different, you're coming at it differently and you appreciate that they're coming at it differently, as opposed to just being a straight up skeptic saying this doesn't exist, you're an idiot. Like it's like a debate, you know? So,
Yeah, it's interesting because like when it comes to the type of like verbiage and like the resources, I want to put quotations, but like the resources that we have now about like, you talked about this like self-help like movement, and I think back and say like, oh, my parents didn't have the resources or the words or the therapy talk that I feel like we have now. And to a large extent, I think to myself, oh, well, that stuff has been incredibly helpful to put some like, you know, words to the meaning crisis that I'm feeling, like it like there's like some good there. But then there's also, because of that goodness, there's like also a very uh like slippery slope into, again, that like siloing off or like leaning into your truth and then sticking to your truth and then separating then from everyone else that you talk to. And because you have the words and you have the ability to like double down and constantly remind yourself of these truths, like being in spaces like this can be, well, I thought pretty dangerous, because like you can bring in your truth against someone else's truth, and then it's just you disagreeing and then being more willing to then stick to your truth, and then you just say, oh, I guess we're never going to agree. And so I think again, while there's something good about the way that we can speak about these ideas now, there needs to be a proper arena to flesh out these ideas. And I do think that this is a space that, I don't know, has been a little bit more open to the fact that it isn't just like a me against you type of conversation. It's like me and you against something bigger than me and you. And so it's like, how do you use our, I don't know, our knowledge and our language and our wisdom to do that sort of talking? It's so close to thinking that it's me against you. It's so close, but it's like really it's us against something bigger. So
It's funny too because just the way you said that, there are people that are going to think that we're talking about solving our nation's problems, and that's not what we're here to do. We're here to be able to have relationships with each other and understand why you see things the way you do, and not necessarily say that's right or wrong, but both of us trying to figure out what is the truth. Well, what is truth? It's not my truth. It's not your truth. There is a truth. We're just trying to find out how we connect to that truth.
right.
And it's like, is there history? Sure. Is there bad stuff in the past? Sure.
Mm-hmm.
But if you come into this space and you actually engage in a relationship to get to know each other, you might not see codings of whatever you think you see. You might not you might actually be able to engage somebody in a proper way than from a
Mm.
one-sided direction, and it only be this way, you know. And I just pray people see that, when you have been living with a viewpoint for so long, you have to be able to say there might be an exit or an off ramp, maybe for you. It's like,
Sure.
and so, like, when you think that this is just the way that it is, and there's no
Right.
other reality to the way that I see it, you're not leaving yourself an exit. You're not leaving yourself a possibility of being wrong, or a possibility that I got it all figured out. Well, you might have a lot figured out. You might know a
Right.
lot of history, but it may not be completely the way you see it. Is that a
Right.
possible? Is that
Right.
possible?
Yeah, I when you're talking, it reminded me of the last job I was in. I worked at a place where essentially where I worked, and there's like two locations of my job, and I worked in like parallel to the other side of this company. And so what I did oftentimes like was affecting the other side of the company, but because I was like brand new, I didn't really know how it all linked up. I just knew that I like showed up and had my like, this is your job description and this is what you do all day, and you clock in, clock out, and leave, right? And me wanting to like know why I was doing what I was doing, or like how what I was doing was affecting other people, I essentially like asked the question of, when I do this task and I do it wrong, if I like or don't do it in time, how does this affect the people on the other side of the company? And when I asked that question to these people, they were like, why does that matter? Like, why do you care? And I said, because it would make it matter to me. What do you mean? And it was just very interesting that the way that we structure our companies now is like, you just do your job and then you like don't, it doesn't matter how it affects everyone else. And something about the way that you were talking about how we should interact is like, if and why like personal relationships or getting to know each other like matters is because, like, me wanting to know how when I fuck up, how my fuck up like affects someone else, and the outcome of the bigger picture, I think that's exactly the same as like I was when I talked to Tayo the other day. I'm going to talk about this conversation for forever. I don't even know what we necessarily talked about, But in my conversation with Tayo, because I felt this new level of connection, and he became my community, he became like part of me in some way. And I felt like if I don't become the best version of myself, Tayo suffers. And all of a sudden, I was like, oh my gosh, I need to do better, not just for me, but also for my community, for Tayo. And like my investment and living in the world became so like the willingness to invest became so much higher. The meaning behind being better, like all of a sudden, just like skyrocketed. And I think that's what happens when you have, when you meet people in person and you have these deep conversations. Is like all of a sudden, just existing in the world, you want to be a better person. And then however that manifests, whether it's political or in your job or in your family, like that's not actually the part that seems to matter. It's the fact that you're changing your stance as a person towards all of these things. And I think that only comes from conversations like this, where like you meet on a different level. And I'm like, man, I want to be better so that Brett has a better life, or that my friend's daughter has a better life, or whatever. Like it has to have a deeper connection than that. And
and it's
that's
even,
why these things matter.
yeah, it's even deeper than that, right? Like, I mean, like I was saying, like, when we brought up the whole propositional tyranny thing, we heard that there was these two groups that came out of the Peterson sphere,
Mm,
and one got off the train and formed, and it was the TLC, the possibility of God, the idea of God. The other one was no, more atheistic. And so these groups were polar opposites, and they just agreed to separate, and that was how it is. It was like this, realizing where we stand on things and what was the priority. So it's like, to me, TLC is church adjacent, like Paul says, Paul Vanderclare says, it's like, this is church adjacent. What does that mean? It means that we collectively see this idea of the image of God, right? And so the hierarchy that we hold is that there's this God that is like shining through all of us. And whether or not we want to see, experience, and participate in that process, in the horizontal, in this idea that, like what you're saying, I can affect someone else, you know. Um, I had brought up like The Secret, that book and stuff, and how, like, we manifest these things out in the world. We put this energy out, and it's like, well, hold on a minute. There is something to be said about, I think I used the coffee shop analogy, where there's 10 people deep, and I come in and I'm happy and bubbly. And even though there's a 10 person line deep, I'm still happy. And it kind of becomes infectious with everybody
mm,
there. And then
mm-hmm.
the clerk's happy, and like, they got good, fun people. And then everything moves fast. Whereas I come in and I'm like, oh, 10 people. You got to be kidding me. And the mean person in the middle is like, you just got here. You have no idea how long it's been. You're complaining and you just got here. And so, like, and then the clerk hears all the complaining, and now the clerk's taking her time helping each customer. And then every customer come up to the counter and they're like, now that this is my time and I'm going to take as much time as I need. Let me see, almost like they're literally trying to gaslight the people behind them. So it's like, yes, does that stuff happen? Yes. Is there a
Right.
psychological thing going on? Yes. But see, I don't really see it that way. It's like, these are
Mm.
opportunities to come into a space, and I can choose to be part of a positive reflection of Christ in them and make everything a beautiful place, as opposed to coming in and being a miserable sack of shit in the morning and starting everybody's morning off like crap because they had a horrible experience getting coffee.
Hmm. I think this goes back to like I think we oftentimes use that propositional sense of like, oh, I want to learn the teachings of the church or Jesus or whatever in order to have faith. But I think it goes back to it is in that relationship with. It's like, what is your relationship with Jesus or the church or whatever? Because it's like that it's like that deeper meaning that I feel like I was trying to point to, that I think you're representing in your story as well. It's like, I don't know, how do you see it in that way? How do you like actually have like conversations like with God? Like, and maybe that's what the whole, why prayer seems to, at least for me, be coming up as so important, and why like conversations like this are coming up as being so important, is like you have to be in communication and being like on a level of like getting to know, um because I think often, because I don't know if you feel this, Brett, but like when I talk to someone, like I'm seeing myself in them. Like I'm selfishly like, oh, what are they bringing about in me? Like that's how the connection seems to happen. And I wonder if that's how you're supposed to be with Jesus, and why he came as man, is that like so that there's an ability for you as a human to see yourself in him, because but you can only do that through conversation with him. Does that make sense, or does that track?
Say it again.
like like I feel as though for connection, like the way you connect with someone, it's because there's like some part of you that seems to notice a reflection in another, like like I don't I will never know what you, Brett, are ever going through exactly, ever, but there are like bits and pieces that I am saying like, oh, I've had a job before, or I've been, in a transition before, or I've whatever, what have you. And me being able to see myself, or like that piece, is like the way to connect. That's my way to say like, oh, I can connect to this one and this one and this one and this one. So the more you like know someone, the more of those like little spots you can like see and connect with. And I was saying that, when it comes to like, connecting with religion or faith or Jesus, there's like this need to have that sort of same conversation where you can sort of see yourself in him. And I think that's maybe why he came down as a man, is because there's like, that's the only opportunity in which we would be able to ever see ourselves, right? And so that gives an opportunity to like see that and have a connection, because if you know him, then your life matters, because then you're just like, with you, like knowing you makes me want to be better for the world, for you too. And so maybe that's like, I don't know, I'm probably like probably talking a little bit too far metaphorically for this, but I think there's something there, that like, that's because you're supposed to have conversations with him. It's not just like asking something or telling something. It's I think it's supposed to eventually be like a conversation with with Christ. And that's how you eventually like find that connection with him.
Yeah. No, I think. See, that's the thing. It's like we have different life experiences, 100%. But when you're sharing something about your life and how it impacted you, or even emotionally affected you, and what you had to work through, I might not identify with that exact thing, but there's a parallel in my life that I can connect to. So, like, one of the things I was told in when I had to facilitate a group that I didn't have an issue with, like it wasn't my thing, it wasn't my drug of choice or whatever it was. And like early on, it was like, listen, you just have to identify with the pain. You can identify with pain. It doesn't matter the what. It's the process, and it's the pain and the things and the way that you used it as a tool to compensate or cope with life and how you saw life. And so, like identifying with the pain is a pretty big deal. So when I hear somebody talk, it might not be pain, it might be joy, whatever. I'm able to identify with it through my experience, but because you're sharing something, it helps me walk a mile in your shoes and have an understanding and a sympathy of what you're talking about, or have a possible, hey, I could maybe experience that maybe in a different way in my life. And so it's like, by the communicating, by the talking, by the sharing the intimate things, good, bad, and all of it, that I would never ever be able
Right.
to connect like this unless we had these conversations. I would never process these things unless we communicated and had a relationship. So, and that's what I think a lot of people are missing is like, you don't want to talk about your sensitive parts of your life. Okay, fine. You can be ice cold for the rest of your life and think you're having relationships with people or communicating with people, but in fact, you're just really dispelling information. And so it's
Yeah.
like, that's an entirely different thing. And if that's how you want to go through life, knock yourself out. But that's not how I'm rolling. That's not who I want to engage with. I want to engage
Right.
with the real. And the real can be like this because
I
I'm
agree.
hearing what you're saying and you're sharing what you're sharing. So it's like that's an entirely different dynamic. And so it's so awesome to know that when you brought up Jesus, it's like when you read the Passion Story is a great example. It's like to think like when I'd be like praying and I'm like, oh man, all my friends are like letting me down, man. They're like ostracizing me. I don't even have any friends now or whatever, a moment in my life. And it's like, well, wait a minute. Oh yeah, I forgot. Sorry. They did that to you too. Um, I'm being persecuted. I'm a victim.
Mm.
Wait a minute. They did that to you too. And what's even
Just
more
got goosebumps.
powerful
Yeah. Yeah.
is that they did that to you for something even bigger for me. And it's like, there was this beautiful Christmas story. I had some people that weren't really Jesus people. And I was looking online during Christmas to send them a text to say, hey, love you, thinking about you. And it was a story about these birds. I forget what it's called, but it's this guy decides not to go to church. His family goes out to church without him, and he stayed at home. And a snowstorm came in, and he started kind of worried about his family, thinking about, oh man, I should have probably gone. And he hears this banging at the door, and these birds were trying to come into his back glass door. And so he sees them. So he scoops them up, he picks them up, he brings them to his barn and creates a little warm spot for them, gets them out of the blizzard. And he's like, he could see they're still timid, like they're like kind of afraid of him, and he's like, man, I wish I could just, I don't know, like look like a bird, or somehow be able to communicate with them so that I can let them know everything's going to be okay.
Yeah.
And that you're going to be okay, you're safe, you're loved, you're going to be fine, um, instead of this strange thing that's trying to, looks like it's taking them. And so he goes, and then the video clip shows in the barn, it's kind of panning by a fence, like one of the stalls. And
Mm.
it says, he goes, remembering it's Christmas, he goes, I guess I would have to be like them for them to understand that I know them.
Mm.
And then as it's passing the stall, it shows the manger, and it's the baby in the manger, and it's like, that's the video I'm going to send them, because it's like forgetting the reason for the season, the idea that he had to come as a man so that we could understand, he can identify with us, the actual real communication between us and the divine. You know, like, how is it possible that we can communicate with something that is so larger than we can even comprehend? Well, this is how. This is the
Right.
bridge. And
Right.
so it was a super cool story. And I sent it to her, a couple of people. And I don't know, maybe it impacted them, but I thought it was the best way I could express why Jesus mattered to me, you know, why it was important instead of just a generic Santa Claus picture. Merry Christmas.
That was so beautiful, Brett. I'm so thankful for that story, and I'm thankful for these conversations. And I'm probably gonna land the plane here because I did see that Chris Howard is on, and I'm very excited to go and listen to him. And everyone who's listening should go listen to him too. But I just want to say again, like, thanks, like, for these types of conversations in this support system through, you know, all of the transitions. And I know it seems like we're both going through our individual transitions, but it seems like there's a little bit of a connection there, and we can make it, I don't know, we can make it meaningful. And so I just want to say thanks, and I'm not going to say goodbye because I'm going to say see you tomorrow, Brett.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
actually,
we're
I'm
gonna play
so
a little we're gonna play a little disc golf.
I'm so pumped. It'll be
She's
a
gonna
great time.
you're gonna school me on some disc golf.
It's gonna be awesome.
Cool.
But thank you for coming on this morning, and thank you for everyone listening in the chat. But let's head on to Chris Howard and have a wonderful rest of your day, everybody.
Bye everybody.